Computer. Lights.
Hey guys, happy Friday. Looks like we've got like connection issues. Like I've got 7 of 10 connections going. So it looks like it's going to be a rough day. Also, looks like I don't have anybody else on the show today. It's all right. I was going to work on my destroyer yesterday and didn't. So we'll keep working on the destroyer today if we are so inclined. If nobody else shows up, if anybody else shows up, we'll do artist check-in. If nobody else shows up, we'll work on my destroyer. Actually, probably shouldn't work on our destroyer so much as we should work on like other pieces. So, hang on real quick. I don't see anybody else actually on the list to join. So, let's know what else we can do. We could. It is the morning of the Tokyo Olympics. The Olympics have started over in Japan. It's really hot there in the middle of the night for closing ceremonies, and so I feel bad for our Japanese buddies who are definitely going to suffer. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to save this. I have a bunch of these things already sort of saved, but the thing that we really need to work on is we need to work on the pieces of this of our main ship. So we're going to look for that. Because we've got the Unity Corvette landing gear, right? This guy. Which we need to go on ahead and do the layout and design for it. So let's do that. What we're going to do is we're going to set up the seams on this. Because honestly, that's the easiest way to deal with this. Except that everything moved around. Edit mode. Okay. We need to be in line here, and we're going to go ahead and just do this. We're going to click. We're doing 3DS modeling. Are you going to join me today, Colton? I'm doing modeling because there's nobody here. So if you join me, I will stop modeling and we can talk about like the Olympics or something. Otherwise, I'm just going to do this. Well, why don't you just come in on the camera? You don't need OBS to work. Just come in on your main camera. Just bring in... oh. Did you select down here at the bottom where it's got the little gear in the settings? And then you can select your camera. Because if you select it down here in Restream OBS, then it won't work with your camera because it keeps thinking it needs to be your OBS. So it's only if you want to. I mean, honestly. Ah. It's flipped everything around to a different layout, and I'm very confused. So I'm having a hard time with the layout. Hmm. I'm not sure how to get this side to work. There we go. That's what we needed. All right. Because what we really want here, what we really, really want is more controls. There we go. But we're not getting it. Ugh. There we go. It still doesn't have all the commands I need. It's really weird too because it's like it decided to do a different thing here. It's just really strange. Like, I need my UV mapping stuff. I was doing so. One of my biggest complaints about Blender is there are so many people working on it that they've made it super versatile. But somehow, like for example, this particular model is like totally, it's saved its configuration. So I like its controls are over here now for the unwrap, and I don't know. I'm like, it's not helping me. Okay, but I got it. We unwrapped this. That's what I was after. It was this. So there you go. Maybe I should have put more of a seam in it. And I don't understand like half the stuff that it does. For example, for this model, it decided to put all of the controls at the bottom of the page, not the top. So all the controls, I mean, this is not something that I did. I'm sure I did it. I'm sure somewhere I clicked the, a button somewhere. It said, for this model and this model only, I want you to, there we go. That's what I was really looking for. I'll put that off there. And we're going to know what we're going to do. We're going to do this. So I'm flipping it upside down because my tradition is that the back is on the bottom. And since this is the selected sphere, you can tell where the back is. All right. Oh, for crying out loud. Arg. Go. So we are looking at this. Probably would have been wiser for me to do. All right. Got to put it in naked mode, as I often say. But we can't. Why can't we? Because that's here. There we go. There we go. So what we'll do next is this. Shrink that down. All right. Now, when I do these bits, I try to make them as relatively similar to what we've got here as possible. For example, we know that this is the top of this foot, and this is the connector right there. So I'll try to put this guy under that guy so that I'll go, oh yeah, I remember what that means. And then we can scale it back up again. And put it right here. Hang on real quick, guys. I'll be right back. Hi, Davis. Is the trash on the curb? Sorry about that. I hear the trash truck outside, and I was like, well, I wonder if my kiddo has put the trash out. As the kiddo is supposed to do. All right. We're going to go through here. We're going to do this, and then this. And I'll turn that like so. I don't know if you're working in Blender, Colton, but if you are and you have tips on how to do this better, hey, Colton's here. I mean, at least, hey, look, your camera works.
It finally worked.
That's awesome. I was going to say, if you have any tips, like, I don't know if you use Blender or not in your classes.
I have never used Blender. I use Maya.
Well, you know what they say. If you use Maya uses you, or something.
They're very similar. That is true. I just haven't actually really played with it yet. So
that's all right.
I've been wanting to. That was one of my goals this summer, but that hasn't happened yet.
You're like, I was gonna, but then it didn't happen.
Like, I've been learning a lot in Maya, but what do you is this Blender?
Yes, it's Blender.
What are you trying to do?
I'm just UV mapping.
Oh, I haven't made that. I haven't understood UV mapping yet.
Yeah, UV mapping is kind of wild and weird and woolly. And so it's one of those things, but I've been doing UV mapping for aeons. Because that's what we used to do back in the day. You know, back in the old days, the days before the monsters. But I mean, that's just it. Actually, I could give you a quick rundown of what UV mapping is.
I know what it's for. Well, I mean, I know what it's for in the game engine wise. Like, you can break down your whole model down into a 2D plane so you can draw on it.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And mapping is a little weird in Blender. It used to be pretty cool because it had a smart unwrap, but then they decided they liked the idea of the seam thing. So you declare a seam on your model. That's what this red line is. And then just say unwrap, and it goes, oh, okay, well, we'll cut the model at the seam and then unwrap it. And I'm like, that's fine, but I could have used a box unwrap for some of these and saved us like 12 steps. But that's okay. You know, it's not what we do, apparently.
Blender's biggest competitor is Maya, and that's why that's a lot of the stuff that Blender does, or at least that I notice, is through Maya.
I think I'm following you on that part.
So,
okay.
Maya is, I would say, the most expensive 3D program out there.
I'm not going to disagree with that.
And they're still the top dog, but Blender is pretty much the Maya knockoff, kind of like how Photoshop and
GIMP.
Clip Studio were the same way. There for a bit, and they're kind of definitely splitting apart.
Oh yeah. Well, the big thing I like about Blender is that it's free.
Oh no, I get that part. A lot of people like it for that same reason. I totally get it. But I'm just saying it's the similarities.
Well, I think there's only so much you can do. You know what I mean? It's like you still have to have operating vertices, and you still have to, it's still going to be lines and faces and vertices.
Yep.
No matter what you do, it's always going to be that.
It's all the same, really. Like, I mean, they're both, from what I heard, they're pretty much, they work the same to an extent.
Yep.
The base system, it's the same, but once you start getting into all the fancy stuff and that's when the game changes.
Yeah.
Which I understand it, because my teacher showed me once. And
right?
I was like, oh, I get the difference now. Okay, it's like, yeah, don't get me wrong, I know Blender. The only reason I know Blender is because certain companies only want Blender.
Right.
It's, yeah. When you get into that whole world, it's not just that world, but I mean, in corporations keeping everything the same makes it easier for them for models and whatnot, so they don't have to go through and be like, oh, now I need to go get this program, oh, now I need this program for this one, blah blah blah, so we can do modifications.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and in this instance it's nice because we all use OBJs for everything in and out,
right,
and that makes it a whole lot easier to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like once I could give you this model and you could then load it into Maya and it'd be fine.
Right.
The thing that I never understood, because I took 3ds Max back in the day, the thing I never got was modifiers. Modifiers are really weird to me. Like, there are modifiers in Blender too.
Modifiers as in...
So you take, let's say you build a square, then you apply a divisor multiplier or modifier, which divises the square into 50,000 zillion little squares. Now it's a circle. Now it's a sphere because it cut all of the faces into smaller faces until it finally had just a circle or a sphere. The problem is you export that and it's square because the modifier gets dumped. And so it's like, well, now wait a minute.
Right.
So these people are building these beautiful models and they just keep adding modifiers and modifiers and modifiers and modifiers. Then they export it and you get 2 cubes. And you're like,
that's not what I wanted.
It's like, it was a horse and it's this beautiful horse model and you grab it and it's like 3 cubes. And you're like, okay. It's because the modifiers didn't actually export because OBJ format can't accept modifiers. So then all these modifiers get dumped and you're like,
that makes sense.
It really frustrates me. But it's also like a conceptual problem for me. Like,
okay.
For me, I really like the idea of, like, I understand how a model works. Like, this model has no modifiers on it. It's just a landing gear. But I get it. I understand what it is. It works.
Oh, is that what you're building?
Yeah, it's the landing gear for my ship. And so
okay, I was sitting here like looking at it. I was like,
I don't know what it
are
is.
You making?
Yeah, the landing gear on the Kittiwake are they fold up against the hull, and so I have to make them mobile so that when I use them in the comic, I can either put them in the down position or the up position, depending on whether the Kittiwake's landed or not.
Right.
Because she actually can land. So there's 2 landing gear and then a docking door set on the front, the nose, which is what yesterday I was having to like manually draw in the docking doors. The landing gear are behind Chang's head, so I didn't need to worry about the landing gear in the picture.
Right.
I'm upside down. Oh, that knocked your camera out.
Yeah, I know. I was doing something. My bad. 1 second.
It's all good. Boop, 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 boop. So today starts the Olympics.
Are they doing it?
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I thought they were. There was that whole like, oh, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
Well, and then I don't know if you also heard. There we go. Everything that's going on in the video game world right now with Blizzard Entertainment.
Uh-oh, what happened to Blizzard?
All their dirty laundry is finally coming out.
Oh, boy.
California has had a 2-year investigation
Oh, no.
on this company that things are going pretty south now.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
We have like our gamer girl who's on Geek Tank, Chelsea.
Yeah.
She's had it out for Blizzard for a long time. Like she's been pretty ticked off at them for a while.
Yeah.
And I guess the rest of the world's finding out what Chelsea already knew, apparently.
I mean, I get it. I totally get it. It's pretty much what they're accusing them of.
Ghost Hand saying that they were essentially a frat house.
Yep.
Male employees harassing female employees. This explains why Chelsea was so mad, because that's like one of her big pet peeves is, she gets into a company. She's smart. She knows what she's doing. She's got all of her ducks in a row, and they treat her like a cutie pie, or whatever. And it's like, yeah, she's got better things to do with her life,
Right. All right. I'm stopping playing with my phone. There we go.
Yeah. I was going to say, boy, you're having fun with the phone thing.
It's this whole OBS is acting weird lately, so it's working now. So
I'm running out of OBS. I'm running directly out of OBS over here, which I don't know.
Yeah, something happened. I don't know what I did. It was after I moved, everything kind of went all wonky, and I might have done something while I was like shutting down the systems or what. I don't know.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
Who knows?
We just don't know exactly the extent, is what Ghost Hand's saying, and if their sub studios were involved. Ugh.
There's a lot that they've been talking about, and that's why I just been kind of sitting here. Like I got home last night and was literally just sitting here reading and watching stuff until like almost 3 o'clock because I was just like, wow. Like I knew there was some bad, like some dirty laundry that needed aired out, but I didn't realize to what extent. I was kind of like dumb, like off on it. I was like, wow.
Yeah, apparently Chelsea stopped playing World of Warcraft about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It was 2019's DCC that we were at. They had a huge booth, Blizzard did, and that was the moment when she was like, yeah, we're not messing with Blizzard anymore. And I'm like, well, what did Blizzard do?
Yeah.
They were mistreating the female employees. And I was like, wow, really? When she comes up with dirt that, when she comes up with stuff, she's really in the know. So yeah. I was like, wow, I didn't know that. And
there was a lot to that one specifically. Yeah. Like, to be fair, game quality has been downfall.
Yeah, she's not missing much.
I mean, you're not wrong. I play both. I play a lot of different. Like, I like MMOs. I've always liked MMOs, and like I played World of Warcraft. I play Final Fantasy 14, and like a lot of people have their likes and dislikes of both, or all the others that are in there too. Like, there's so many different things that we're here doing all this stuff with the MMO communities and whatnot. But in that sense, though, like, it's been stagnant for them for years because they were the only things on top. It's that whole concept I keep trying to tell people. Like, I was trying to explain to my friend last night. I was like, when certain people gain power, things will change, and not usually in the good.
No.
And they've been the top dog for so long that they never thought there was ever going to be any repercussions. But now that they're not being the top dog and losing losing subscriptions and all this stuff like daily now, Like
Yeah.
it got pretty bad here for like the past month. Any award or
Yeah.
Sledgehammer at better workplaces. I'm hoping like
Ooh, Ghost Hand's a gamer.
yeah.
I'm like, gotcha.
I'm right there with Ghost House. I was like, I'm hoping they're all better places. I mean, Riot went through this. Riot Games went through this, what, like a few years ago with the Kotaku
Yeah.
mail. I can't remember what year it was, but yeah, they were going through the whole same thing of like, hey, we're being discriminated against, we're being sexually harassed, and now finally somehow everything that was like being swept under the rug is now out there.
Yeah. Well, and it's good. We're finally in an environment where that's not acceptable.
Right.
And it gets called out and it stops. And if it doesn't stop, because people will put up with crap for a long time. And, it's like, and then at some point, hey, Brent, welcome to the show. We're talking about games, apparently.
We're talking about industries.
Which is all right, because last night I spun up Homeworld for the first time in 20 years. And my goodness, the remaster is gorgeous.
Is it?
I'm a major Homeworld nut. I was back in 2000 and 2001 when it came out.
Yeah.
And I still love it. It's like one of my favorite RTSs. I'm a big RTS and MMO guy. So, like, that's my thing. I love Sims. I love RTSs.
Sims is fun. I haven't played it. Have you played any of the newer ones? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah,
I've been curious about that
right now.
Oh, really?
I'm running
How
Sims
is it?
4. It's pretty good. They have a recent expansion which is very Japanese. Like it's supposed to be a mountain resort. But it came with all the like Japanese sort of things, and one of them is really funny. Like you can make your Sims very embarrassed because they didn't take their shoes off when they were inside the house, and I love stuff like that. I'm like,
that's amazing.
That is so cool. They get all embarrassed because they forgot to take their shoes off at the door.
I think I played Sims 3.
Sims 3 was good.
It was the last one I played, but like I just kept seeing like the advances in Sims, like Sims 4 and whatnot. I was like, I really want to test this out now, and I just have never gotten around to it.
Every so often, Sims will go through a sale at Steam, so just track it because I feel like the problem that I have with Sims, and most people do, is Origin is money grabbing, and so each expansion of Sims is $60, and and some of those expansions are awesome, and some of them really aren't worth $60. And it's like it added dogs and cats. That's great, but having dogs and cats around to train is fun, but it wasn't worth $60, sort of thing. Yeah, it's actually good now with the DRM's out, and
so they finally went back to one player.
Steam. So, yeah, I never played online with Sim. I can't.
It doesn't really matter. Like, I mean, I'm with you on that. Like, the game was originally meant for you to create your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it was. And I still don't understand the online aspect of the Sims because it's a builder. You build your own.
Thing. Yeah, the other thing that I'm into is City Skylines now because that actually got better than SimCity. Because I'm a SimCity nut too, as well.
SimCity was a lot of fun. I haven't played that since the original SimCity.
The mod that they built a mod for SimCity that was really, really cool, where you could actually like inhabit a car. So then you could just drive through town. It was like
actually, Ghost Hand, I've actually heard that a lot too about EA.
That was a
lot of people. A lot of people start off in like the smaller studios throughout EA, is from what I've heard. Like EA does a lot of stuff, but I mean, it's also EA too. But they have their own model. They have their own model.
On Chelsea's list for different problems, but not work environment, because she likes their work environment.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't like they nickel and dime.
Yep.
People. That's the biggest problem with the EA is the microtransactions.
Yeah.
And that's a major problem with the EA. You get in there and Like that was a thing that we were worried about because we kind of want to play Star Wars Squadrons. Our group does
Uh-huh.
because we used to be X versus TIE players back in the day. And Squadrons looks like it could be X versus TIE, which would be kick butt. But then we're worried about microtransactions. We're worried that we'll get in at $60 on this and then have to pay another $500 just to get an X-wing running. You know,
Right.
you know, and it's like really.
No,
So-
I totally get that too because like EA did a lot of like Star Wars stuff and all that stuff. I don't know if they are now with
Battlefront
Disney
and all of those things that are involved with EA on that front. Totally. Yeah. You know, it's actually Nintendo. Now that's a different story because like Nintendo working now I'm watching Nintendo from the point of view of my kid. That's his big thing. He is totally a Nintendo nut. Right. I mean, he's playing every Mario game known to man. And he just beat Zelda, the latest Zelda game. So, and you know, and he's a gamer, so he does that. I mean, that's his thing. But he's all Nintendo all the time. And him and his buddies play Super Smash Brothers and stuff like that. So, the thing I'm really finding interesting is their online communication system is really good for keeping kids sort of isolated so that they're not, they don't get with the big guys, so to speak, who will try to do something bad to them or whatever.
Right.
But on the flip side, I'm noticing that he's still getting trolled. He's just getting trolled in a different way. Like, because he's 11, he can't communicate with other people directly yet because he's not old enough to communicate directly. But they'll still do things like, if they're working together in a team to finish a level or whatever, the other ones will raise the flag before he can get there. So he ends up losing the level and has to start all over again and stuff like that. I mean, like stuff that's just really crappy. Because all you have to do is get all of them in the same spot when one of them raises the flag, and the other 4 will get to that spot and wait, and he'll be still back here, and they'll raise the flag, so he has to start the level over. And it's like still trolling him in ways that are still aggravating and annoying.
Right.
So it's a thing.
But I think that's kind of hard.
There will always be trolls.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it. Trolls suck. It's the nature of the world.
That's true.
It's still kind of I don't know.
I mean, it's the nature. They're there. They're always going to be there. It sucks, but
yeah. And I mean, we've got to sadly, we have to acclimate our kids to this because if not, you have a kid who grows up not prepared and then gets dropped into the water like we did.
Or you get them to go the exact opposite and just become assholes on the internet.
Right. So, well, and I don't want my kid to become that way. You know what I mean? I don't want my kid to be jaded and cynical.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody on the internet's just a jerk. Well,
I mean, you give someone a keyboard, they don't see you face to face.
Yeah.
There's a barrier of human decency that disappears.
Yeah. And I also think that, it's the 1% rule. 1% of the people you will run into are jerks, but you'll remember them. You know what I mean? Like, you won't remember the 99% that are nice. You'll remember the 1% that made you really mad because you were mad for like 2 days about it.
Right.
So it occupied your mind. And so it's what I call the 1% rule. And it's like, it's this, you've got to remember that 99% of us are all really good people doing the best that we can, trying our hardest to do the right thing. And then there's that one guy.
Right. The one guy.
Run into that one guy.
Right.
Brent, you're actually one of our buddies. You're not a bad guy at all. And we know it. And you can't fool us.
I think you're cool.
Ghost Hand's a pretty cool dude. You're a pretty cool dude. There's nothing wrong with you guys.
With my experience with you guys, you're all cool.
I mean, the thing is that, I mean, it's even true here. We've had one or two people that trolled. And, you know, over the entire, I've been broadcasting for almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
And we had two guys come in here and troll. And even when they were trolling, they were just making inappropriate jokes. Like, you know, they were hitting on us and stuff like that. And it was kind of weird and creepy. But it wasn't like, they weren't making slurs or anything like that. They just kept deciding which one of us would be best to have sex with. And it was really kind of uncomfortable since, you know.
That's weird.
Yeah. Because it was Pepper and me. And I'm like, if you both are girls, then that's uncomfortable for Pepper. If you're both guys, it's uncomfortable for me. Like, either way, this is an uncomfortable situation.
It's just getting uncomfortable all over. It's fine.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah. No, I totally get that, though. That's, yeah. And that's the thing, though, is like you just get the people that just come in and just start doing that stuff. And it annoys me.
Yeah.
Because I get it.
I think the thing that I'm most upset with in communities is people who do not understand subjective versus objective opinions.
Yeah.
Because that is something that bothers me, especially in the Trek community, because they keep dropping in on every post that's positive and ranking on it by saying Kurtzman ruined Trek or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, Kurtzman didn't ruin Trek. I like Discovery. I like Picard. I like Lower Decks. All of those are running fine. I'm going to love Strange New Worlds. I can tell already. You know, there's nothing ruined about Star Trek. Star Trek's still just the same Star Trek it was. And they're like, no, it's not. And I'm like, you know, you guys are all young. I was 14 when Next Gen came out. I remember. I'm
Brent ruined Trek.
Brent. Wait. Brent. Okay. Yeah. We have to do the planet. Brent. Sadly, I don't have a communicator right here. Usually I have like all kinds of cool props. All I really have is I can totally have Brent get attacked by a SETI eel. That's about the best I can do. You've met my SETI eel, right? You have no idea what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. See my SETI eel?
I have not. That's cool.
This is actually from the mold from the creature from Star Trek 2. It's they made like 12 of them just in case one got screwed up or ruined in the movie. So this was actually on set in Star Trek 2. It's just one that they didn't use. So they just made the mold out of foam rubber. And so, you know, I've got one. It's one of my prized possessions, of course.
Right, not in person.
So, you've never met my SETI eel in person, have you? I need to actually, a buddy of mine has another one, and he and I are going to paint them. Look exactly right and everything. We need to like 3D print little eyes for it because it doesn't have eyes and it doesn't have the little claws in the front. A little tongue that sticks out. We'll get there. It'll be awesome.
Thankfully.
Yeah. They are young, wrap themselves around the cerebral cortex. I don't have any young for it either. I don't have any babies. Oh, well. Yeah. Oh, well, I live to be weird. But we're Trekkies. We're supposed to be like this way. Trekkies are broken people. We all know this. Anyway.
Trekkies are broken people.
Right? I mean, like, think about it. We're weird. We're downright weird.
I mean, I think we're all weird.
Yeah, we all are. I like your hair, dude. I'm going to actually probably dye my hair before the end of the year, I think. But a little darker than that.
Yeah. Well, it was supposed to be more of like a darker teal, but I'm going with it.
Yeah. It looks
I also just got back from... I went to last Saturday to a punk show. So I was kind of like all like into it anyways. Like, all right. It makes a statement. I'm good.
Right. It's pretty cool.
But yeah, it was supposed to be teal. She was supposed to cut it shorter. Yeah.
Like that would be a color.
Yeah, it was supposed to be shorter. It was supposed to be teal. Like she didn't fully do everything, but it's still long enough. I can go into anywhere and just get it cut.
Oh yeah, Stargate B5 and Starship Troopers. Yeah.
Starship Troopers.
I don't have any Starship Troopers starships.
Really?
Looking over at my ship setup here. I've got B5 starships, but I don't know why I don't have Starship Troopers. Nobody ever made them.
I don't think they did, actually. Now you mentioned
I'm gonna have to print it.
Did they make any? I'm curious now.
Yeah. I mean, they made Babylon 5 micro machines back in the 90s, and I have those.
They didn't really have that many ships in Starship Troopers, did they?
Well, they did have the big carriers, though.
Oh, yeah, you'd have the carrier and the puddle jumpers, yeah.
Yeah, those were pretty cool. I mean, to be fair, it was pretty cool. But, like...
Yeah. They're cool, though. Yeah, it was actually... I did, like... For how low budget that film was, I did like the designs that they went with a lot of stuff.
Yep. Yeah.
I love that series, though. Like, it's so bad, it's amazing.
Right? Like, here's my Babylon 5. It's very hard to see because it's so fuzzy and out of focus.
Oh, no.
That's all right. But you can kind of, I mean, like, the Minbari ships are so uniquely looking, you can totally tell if that's Minbari. And then the Vorlon. Yeah. I carry these things around all the time. The thing that I loved, though, about Babylon 5 was the Star Furies.
Oh, I guess they did make some.
The Star Furies were so good. Now, see, Roughnecks.
The Roughnecks.
Roughnecks was awesome. That was much closer to the book. Like the Pluto campaign, that was nice. That was impressive. That was good. That was good. I dug that one. I need to make sure I put my Vorlon going the other direction, though. The ones I really liked, though, was the Narn ships. The Narn ships were the best. Narn. You have to say it like that. Centauri. The Narn. Like Peter Jurassic said all the time. It was such a good show. Frustrating that they just let that kind of... I don't know. J. Michael Straczynski, he just kind of... Yeah, the fighter... The thing that's so sad is watching it now, because like the quality was so awesome back in 1993, and now you're looking at it going, ew, I could kind of render better than that on my little box computer right here, you know. Like, ooh, you know, and it's kind of a bummer because it is glaring, you know. It's so sad. I was so much so that I use Babylon 5 as an example when people start getting like wigged out about the new Star Trek, because I hated DS9 back in the day because I thought it was just a ripoff of Babylon 5.
I didn't know Starship Troopers had a series. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Roughnecks?
I'm reading up on the Roughnecks thing. I was like, I have not
Pluto
seen this. I've
campaign?
seen everything else, though, but I have not seen this one.
I really liked the Pluto campaign. That was a really good series.
Huh.
You're like, wait, what?
No, I see it. Yeah.
You know what? One of the big disappointments for me, though, in Stargate was their spaceships. Some of them were okay. Like anything that came from the original design of the movie, those were pretty cool. But like,
No, from the first movie, yeah.
Yeah, from the first movie, like the pyramid type spaceships and things like that.
I like the concept of like that's like pyramids were the docking stations for that.
Right?
I was like, oh, that's cool. I never would have thought of that.
But I really did not, especially when they finally got the Earth ship moving. I was like, it was not I'm a sucker for starships. Obviously, I've got like a zillion starships all over the place here.
No, you?
Yeah, me. So, but yeah, that was such a depressing thing. It was that the starships from Stargate were not that good.
Yeah.
Gates were cool. The concept of gates were cool. And the truth of the matter is that that was sort of an argument for why we don't have planet-to-planet transporters in Star Trek, is because you don't need to have starships at that point if you've got stargates. So, you know what I mean? It's like you don't need them if you've got stargates. So
That's fair.
and it's true, because we managed to go like 5 seasons before we finally had to decide to put a spaceship together for Stargate. Yeah, because they're like, yeah, we'll just keep put our Stargate set up on some random part of California. Like this will be planet,
I thought it was Colorado.
253. Well, they only filmed the Cheyenne Mountain section out.
Oh, and then everything else was in California. Okay,
California.
That makes sense. They just came in like, oh, we're just gonna do right here. Hold on.
It's not like they'll let them into Cheyenne Mountain.
One day.
Oh, Vancouver. Yeah, it was probably Vancouver. That makes sense.
I
actually took a tour of Cheyenne Mountain because at the time my sister was stationed there. So you can get a tour, but only if you have family stationed there. So for a small amount of time, my sister was stationed at Cheyenne Mountain, so I got a tour. And I asked them where the Stargate was, and they're like, "Ha ha ha! Yeah, you're the 50th person to ask that." But
like, I'm the smart
one. Come on. It was kind of funny because I wanted to know if there was a secret underground. And so, but it was cool because like halfway through the tour, he came up to the elevator. There was an elevator, and he's like, "We don't go into that elevator. It does not, in fact, have 50 floors underneath here." And he was like playing it up like it was, top secret, 50 floors below it, because he knew at least one of us had made a joke about that. So
he knew one of you were
one of us would appreciate the fact that there was an elevator but the elevator really only went up. It didn't go down. So that we know of.
Right.
They're still shooting in Vancouver and Toronto now. They're shooting in Toronto. Brent was commenting the other day that Star Trek is starting to finally copy Mandalorian with they've set up the television screen stage thing now for Star Trek. That's going to be cool. So I don't know. Are you familiar with what they're doing with Mandalorian there? So they've got this stage which has a ton of television screens effectively all around it.
Okay.
And so in the stage, you could put an actor and a couple of props and then project a planet all around it. And it's a 360-degree planet view that projects around the actor. And then when you film it, it looks like they're on the planet. But the best part is when you have, for example, Mando, who's wearing reflective armor, his armor is all silver. The actual planet reflects off of his armor because it's really there.
That makes sense.
And they do some cool stuff with it. They've got it set up with an Unreal Engine so that when the camera moves, the perspective changes on the monitor so that it still looks in perspective for depth of field.
That's cool.
It is. It's pretty wicked. And
that's really interesting. Wait, they use the Unreal Engine?
Yeah, they're using Unreal Engine for it. So
that's
Unreal
cool.
Engine is insane.
Yeah,
it's like I want to learn Unity programming just for Unreal Engine.
Just to play it. Pretty fun. I messed with it for a minute. I was enjoying it, but I never. Once it got to the coding side, I was like, "What's going on?"
Right. Well, I don't know. There are things about it that I'm learning about, because I actually really think I could probably use it for setting up sets and worlds for my game so that they're easy to rig. Right now, I use Daz 3D for setting up sets for my game or for my comic book. But I was thinking that Unreal might be easier, faster. It doesn't require a render out.
It depends. I mean, Unreal has a lot of different things to it too, so you'll probably get lost for a little bit going, "Ooh, what's this do?"
That's pretty much what's happened. A couple of people have made a couple of various simulators that I've been kind of poking around with.
Right.
Most of them they're heading towards the VR world. They're trying to use VR for it.
I want to get into that world. That looks like so much fun.
Right, me too. But it's like got a couple of VR things kind of going on, and that's neat. One of the ones that I really was kind of messing with a lot was kind of cool because they set it up so that the bones were reactive. So if you like put the model on the stage, all of the limbs would actually move as if the model was
gravity reactive.
Yeah, gravity reaction and stuff like that. And you could move the limbs real time, so they would hit parts of the body or hit other characters, and they would get like reaction.
That's cool.
And that I like that a whole lot better than what I was getting out of Daz, because in Daz, you know, obviously they just pass right through other people or pass through walls or whatever.
Right.
There's
no collision mechanics.
So that's really fascinating to me, and trying to figure out how to use that has been cool.
Yeah.
You know, the problem is most of those games are like sex simulators or something like that, and you're like, oh. You have to like wade through all of that, and you're like, I wish they'd just make a sandbox that, you know, wouldn't involve like things like that, because then it's like, because I'm not prudish, but it does sort of give the wrong impression. You know, it's like,
you're not prudish, but it's when you go to a video game, you're not looking for that.
It's not what I'm after. When I'm working, I'm not. That's what I'm working.
Exactly, and I totally get that part. Like, everybody's a little perverted, but like, I don't know about everybody. Let me phrase that. Not everybody. But,
not everybody. But
a good majority of people are. But like,
but there's a time and a place for it, and it's not when you're working.
I'm in the same spot. Like, if I'm doing something, and like, you could tell, like, I'm focused.
In the zone.
I do not want that in my life right now.
Right?
I'm like,
we're in the zone. We're working. We're trying to get this.
Yeah. I'm just doing things. Like, let me finish my thing. Like, after I'm done, maybe. I don't know.
But not right now.
Not right now.
That's the thing. And so it's frustrating on that part, because it would be nice if I could just get the physics engine out of it. So I've been kind of looking to see if I can't build my own version of it. It's just a physics engine to get just the posing and stuff like that effect, where you can throw a person at a chair and they flop into the chair and land properly, like you would imagine a real person sitting in a chair, instead of having to pose the character and they look all stiff, and then you have to like loosen them up a little or whatever, you know, to make them look like they're much more of a. That's one of the problems I have whenever I use the maquettes out of Daz Studio, is they look stiff. They don't look like they're natural.
That's fair.
And so I have to sit there and play with the pose all the time to get their arms right and their legs right.
I'll be right back.
Okay. You do that. So I wonder where everybody else is. Hey, I've got Pepper, looks like. Can add Pepper to the mix. It's Pepper. Well, yeah, we were talking. I didn't know you were back.
You didn't know. You had to have known.
Well, so here is a funny thing about what's been going on here. On my tablet here, I have a plus and a minus, right? On my tablet. So
hey, Pepper.
I will sit there and I'll be working, and then I'll zoom in and zoom out with a key. And then when we're doing our show, I'll click up here, and then I'll hit the zoom out. You guys are now these postage stamps over here on the left side because I've hit zoom out too many times.
I'm a postage stamp. Nice.
Yeah, I'm going to zoom back in again so I can see you guys.
Hey, Brent. I know you're in Kansas, by the way, Brent. You asked where everyone was at, so Brent answered that he was in Kansas.
Okay. I'm like trying to figure out where that came from. It's like out of left field.
Yeah. It's all right.
All right.
Welcome
back.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Welcome back. So, Pepper couldn't show up earlier because he was out to breakfast.
Because his husband wanted to take the day off and steal him from us.
Actually, he didn't take the day off. His work gave him the day off, so...
No, it's all cool. I like you guys.
Not playing hooky or anything like that. No, it was just he had like a 2-day thing for his company where they took him to like I think they went to a ball game the first day, and then like a fancy dinner, and then the next day it was like kind of one of those company retreat things at a hotel, and then stuff like that, and then Friday was supposed to be like a day off. So.
Well, that works.
Yeah. So Bill's behind me, so
I know, I see him.
Yeah.
Hi, Bill. And he can hear us because he's making comments.
Yeah. Not level of messages from Bill, but just comments.
Right.
Comments from Bill.
Right.
But yeah, no. Brent says hi, Bill. Hello. But I walked into you guys are doing things in 3D, and here I am, like, I'm just trying to make sure I'm writing this good.
We were just talking about.
Have you been here since 3D?
I came in when you guys started talking about doing your rigs and everything like that for scenery and stuff. And talking about UI.
Okay, so you haven't been here. Okay, so you haven't been here that long.
Yeah.
Okay.
When Colton first started, I was actually doing 3D modeling down here, and I was afraid we'd been here that long.
Yeah, I had actually been waiting before Guy actually put me in and realized I was waiting. I had came in at like 56 minutes into the show.
You're so patient.
Yeah. So I just was
you were only waiting 4 or 5 minutes. That's okay.
Yeah.
And we were worried you've been sitting in there for like 35 or 40 minutes hanging out.
No. We were at a sit-down restaurant. I was at a sit-down restaurant before. So.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
Well, my husband wanted French crepes, so obviously we went to Village
Crepes.
Because he wanted strawberry French crepes.
Hey.
Strafrapes.
Strafrapes.
I'm just making stuff up now.
Yeah.
That's nothing new.
Hey, Bill, can you go turn on the AC unit before we die?
Before we die a horrible death.
Exactly, yes.
I'm sweating.
I'm already starting to sweat, and it's not even full temperature outside.
Hey, you're from the South? You,
First of all, this is why I left the South. And I have said it multiple times, and I've said it on this show. I hate heat. All right? I hate it with a vengeance of the amount of times. Like, I grew up in tropical weather does not mean I love tropical weather. It means I hate it. Okay? Like,
hence why I'm in Colorado where it's dry all the time.
It's dry. It may be a dry heat, but I cool down if I go into the shade.
It's true. But also...
Tropical weather, no, you don't do that. You go in the shade, it's just as hot. You just get more moist because of the water vapor in the air. No, thank you.
Moist.
I see you guys.
Every single time I hear the word moist,
why you and I are friends, Cole.
Yep.
even when I say that word moist, I want to go moist,
Right?
and then I'm gonna just keep talking like this. You know?
Moist is one of those words. Everybody loves the word moist.
I like.
Even Star Trek's made a comment on that one.
Well, yeah. It's kind of like the unwritten rule, like the most famous scene that I think of when they comment about the food in the replicators is Deanna Troi when she had that hot fudge sundae, and she's like, "Yeah, it's okay. It just never tastes the same like when we were back on Earth."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, "Say it, Deanna Troi. Just say it. Say it. It's not real." It's not real ice cream. It's synthesized to taste like it, but it's definitely not. Because where did they get all that stuff? It's cool.
And Discovery pulled that one already in season 3.
Yeah.
Discovery already did that.
I'm waiting for them to touch base. I'm waiting for them to touch base on whatchamacallit. What's that show? It was just remembering. Lower Decks.
Oh.
We get more Lower Decks next month.
I know. I'm waiting for them to actually do a whole entire episode about the replicators.
They did an episode about the holodecks that was hysterical.
Yeah.
They made Mariner go clean the holodecks, and the captain's like, "What? What's wrong with the holodecks?" And well, it's kind of a gross job. And she's like, "Why?" And the first officer's like, "Because they use it for that." And she goes, "What?" And yes, it's used for that. It was like, and she's like, "Oh my god!" Like she didn't even know.
Well, let's be realistic. I think the Orville kind of actually touched bases with one of the character having an addiction to porn.
Yeah,
and I'm like, yeah, like think about it for a second. You're on a ship. You're away from home. If you're not in a relationship on the ship, what are you gonna do?
Right. It's one of those things that it's only funny. It's funny because everybody gets embarrassed about it, but the truth is that's what they would use it for, and you know it. Nobody would actually be surprised. I don't think the captain would be surprised, except that it was fun to play it for laughs. But
yeah, you can't get a hologram pregnant.
No,
that is true.
Yep,
it would definitely be a thing.
I mean, even was it the Red Dwarf? Their holographic or hologram humans. They even touch basis on the fact that they have lots of sex.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah. So.
Did you see the new Dune trailer?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did.
Yeah, I'm not really impressed with the new Dune trailer. So I'm sorry.
I'm excited. I'm so excited.
I mean, I like the story.
I hate to say this, Brent, but a Halo deck is a different thing entirely. You'll just get shot a lot there. Unless you're Master Sergeant.
Yeah.
So, yes, the Dune. I'm looking forward to Dune. I tried to read Dune a number of times. It's extremely dry and difficult to get into the story.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I recently ended up with the audiobooks. And I really love audiobooks when I'm drawing because I can just run an audiobook and then draw. And then before I know it, I've drawn like 6 pages and listened to 4 chapters, and all is good in the world, right? Because it keeps me from
you can zone
to Facebook and yelling at people. So, which is really what I need to stop doing.
Why are you yelling at people, guy? He's pissing me off.
Don't even want to get into it. Anyway,
all right.
He's gotten into the phase of "get off my lawn, kid." That's what it is.
I keep. There's a lot of people who are on my lawn. Anyway, But I've been
Touche.
listening to Dune, and it's actually really cool. The story is cool, and I actually will probably continue reading it. I just needed to get past that first 3 or 4 chapters.
Yeah.
Because of because it's like the stale setup.
Yeah, he just sets it all up, and it's like, oh, it's so dry, And it's like, even when this is a classic, and you've got to read it, and
it's kind of like when you watch the movie for the first time. Like the very beginning of the movie is very dry and kind of like that, and then like as the movie progresses, you get more and more like interactiveness with the story in your head. But like when they
Right.
do the Dune series, like the Dune television series, they kind of fell into that trap there as well because the story kind of starts off that way. I understand it's a stylization of writing, but like, yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, it's very, very.
yeah,
It's kind
just-
of like it's like part of like the last book of the Harry Potter series. Like, if you get to a certain point and you're like, I don't want to read anymore.
all
I
right.
don't want to read this because it's so like not eventful, dry. But there's a point to it, and I understand there's a point to it at the beginning of Dune. I just don't care for that type of thing. Like, do I have to bite the bullet and do it? Yes, but
Well, and
Do I want to? No.
that's part of like, I have a conflict internally as a writer, because, like, on the one hand, I'm very big on world building.
Mhm.
On the other hand, I can't stand reading other people's world building.
Yeah,
It's like, that's been one of my, oh man, it took me years to read Lord of the Rings. Years to read Lord of the Rings because I couldn't stand all the world building he'd put in there.
do you-
And it's
Yeah.
ironic because I have spent so much time on Bellatrix Rising building the world out of it. And I've enjoyed every last minute of that. That's been
Yeah.
so much fun. And yet I hate reading J.R.R. Tolkien's version of it.
yeah.
And it's
But
I'm not
also
being
the
fair. I'm
thing-
totally a hypocrite.
yeah. Well, what I also want to like mention that like your style of world building is actually very similar to that of Lord of the Rings and his work
Right?
Allergies are
in a
gonna kill
way.
me.
In a way, not perfectly 100% matching, but like
You're not
you have
offending.
to have,
It's okay.
yeah, like
I mean, it's still one of those though. Oh, it's like, man.
well, and you do hard world building, like in you want set ground rules, you want everything to be a certain specific way, and that's what J.R. Tolkien does. Um, it.
And the truth is, for me, it's critical because otherwise, I will wander off target.
Yeah,
And I actually had to kill a story, a Tamerlane story, halfway through because I didn't world build, and I wrote myself into a corner. And since I was drawing a page at a time and writing just slightly ahead of my drawing, I ended up in a corner where there was no way out of the story except to trope it. And I was so mad at myself for that I promised I would world build extensively for Bellatrix Rising so that there wouldn't be I wouldn't get stuck.
Yeah.
Because that's been,
You wouldn't do the same thing again. Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to get locked in that same position again. So to me, it's important. I also find myself to be a better writer when there are some walls.
Mhm.
If you just say you can write anything you want, I write stupid tropey stuff.
Well, it's kind of like the last show, yesterday's show, I was talking about writing for Atomic Punk Jupiter or Atom Punk Jupiter. I keep wanting to say Atomic Punk, but it's Atom Punk.
That's animal.
So there's this theme in Atom Punk where there is always like there can be machines or some type of race that is servitude race or like basically like a slave race, and I crossed over into that with the character Chimpy.
Right.
And like I like literally made him. Where's the line so that I can like he says a line in here going, "The simians, monkey people, as we are known, as when sold and traded, are excellent with our hearing."
Right.
And he's telling the two cadets basically that are like oogling him, and one of them just was extremely rude with basically like she's never even heard of them, and she didn't even know that they were even part of Jupiter's like sphere of like ownership type deal.
Right.
That they did it, and Ernest or Errol, that character like has known about it for years because his father is the leader of Jupiter, so he knows about it. And Jane had no idea. She was complete, and she basically like stated like basically made it seem like Chimpy was an object and not a person.
Right. I'm not sure where we were going with that, though.
No, I was talking about you were talking about tropes, and I kind of
Yeah, tropes.
Oh, okay. I was like,
because,
I'm like, I
Adam
wasn't
Punk-
tracking. That's okay.
because in-
Tropes. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, because in Adam Punk, you always have some type of like if you see a machine, there's usually if you do a storyline, the machines start rising up because they're used as slaves or servitude.
Yeah.
Type deal. And so I kind of went there with that in that manner. I'm kind of regretting it now. So I'm thinking I may want to rewrite it
Yeah. Fair.
or just rewrite it like just take the bought and sold part out and just not have it. And just say that they basically get assigned to stations to help out the planets. So there's that. I don't know. I just don't like the notion of saying that they're what I just said, but it's a trope in the world. I don't
Well,
know.
like I said, it's sometimes tropes are fun to play with. I'm having a little bit of a problem adapting my old Star Trek ones because that was one of the Star Trek stories because that was one of the things I like to do was flip tropes. So, us inventing all this brilliant AI stuff has messed up one of my stories where I flipped a trope because of that. And so I'm going to have to figure out what to do with that story. But the concept of the story was initially Cochrane and her team of the Tamerlan came across people who were working on the holodeck, because this is original series. So there was no holodeck yet. So they were working on it. This was a research station, and they were working on the holodeck. And they were having the biggest problem is like they're in this bar in Paris on the holodeck. And they're like, this is amazing. It's real. It's like so realistic. And the waiter just like jumps out the window and kills himself. And you're like, what? And part of it is that the characters are gaining sentience in the holodeck.
oh, got it. Okay.
So, but they realize that they're trapped effectively in an eternal oubliette. They can't ever leave. They can't go anywhere. They can't do anything. And they're being used, obviously, and things like that. And so that was part of the story. That's great. But now we've added AIs into my story, which trashes that entire story because it's like now it's a violation of the laws for the AIs. So
couldn't you find a rogue planet that basically the AI race asks to have checked out because they feel like new AI is being created, but they're being like
probably what I will do is pivot the story to we're creating because yesterday we had talked about dogs and cats and robots.
Yeah.
Like, could you make holographic dogs?
Right.
And if so, what's the line for the AIs?
Right.
Now you've got this holographic dog. So, like, is that an AI? Does it belong under the purview of the AI race?
Right. And Gosei makes a very valid point. You could do it as a concept from that storyline to make a spin-off series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I mean, well, and one of the things I like to do with my stories is explore a moral quandary, make you think. I never thought of that.
I mean, if we had AI technology and we could have AI pets, my husband would want a tiny elephant.
Right, exactly.
You know,
But
it's an
then
elephant
you're
that
at, if it's intelligent enough to be able to do the things, what's the line of sentience? And I think actually that's probably what that whole episode will be when I get to that episode. It's still in the lock in the seasons for Bellatrix Rising.
messages from Bill.
I'm also curious about when you have something like that. Like even today, we have service animals to help the blind, or we even have emotional ones, such like that. At what point are we playing with the line of slavery?
Mm-hmm.
And at what point is it okay that you also have a high level of feelings? Like people love their pets, even if they're a service animal. They still like they love them. They would be crushed when they die. But is it still slavery?
Right.
This question was also brought up when we were at breakfast, and I was like, I did this with Chimpy, and I'm having some difficulties with it. But then I was like, what would the human race do if they force evolved monkeys? What else would they force evolve to act more like humans? What if they
Right.
did cats and dogs? And Bill suggested octopi. Because on a spaceship, you still need water stored on it.
Mm-hmm.
Why that would it doesn't matter what type of water. Like if you force evolve octopi,
You ever notice how funny the water tastes? That's because the octopuses live in it.
yeah,
Well, my thinking was you wouldn't want cats because cat personalities won't lend themselves to be valuable workers. Dogs, we have service animals, but I think as human beings, we also are very defensive of our pets. So I don't think we would allow that. But octopi, no one has really any strong feelings about them. They're intelligent. So
we like
don't
them
taste
as
bad.
animals.
so
They don't
They
taste
have the
bad. They
ability
just
to
have this like
manipulate the
rubbery
environment.
texture.
Yeah,
I mean, that's like one of the requirements, the cornerstones of sentience is whether they can manipulate their environment.
Yeah.
And
octopi
clearly they can.
manipulate. Yeah. And they have the intelligence of like a 7-year-old normally.
Really?
So
Yeah.
of course, yeah, they do actually. They're more intelligent than dolphins.
Yeah, it's just that they're so alien that we don't notice that. But I
Yeah.
mean, like there are stories of, like the keepers would put rotten shrimp in the tank, and then they would be sitting at their desk, and the octopus would come up to their desk and throw the rotten shrimp at them, and then crawl back to the
Yeah.
aquarium.
That's awesome.
Because
true.
Yeah,
like
and you have to think of something like so in the octopus's world, females have 8 tentacles. Male octopuses only have 7. Their 8th is actually their penis, and they will rip it off and grow a new one if a female is pursuing them to mate. So it's like the ultimate FU.
Go F yourself.
They will throw it at and basically it's a thing to self-inseminate because they don't want to deal with it. So it's like that is like the ultimate and they do this. This is something that is actually this is documented in nature documentaries about octopi.
Oh, we believe you.
Everything.
It's but we're giving you the horrified look of we would never do that to ourselves.
No.
Right?
No. But if you give them more sentience than they probably have already, and you give them a voice where they can actually speak to us in a manner
Yeah, I think the only reason that we keep making dolphins the other sentient life is because they're cute and they sit there and make ticky noises.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I think the biggest thing is we spent literally thousands of years believing that we were top dog and the only smart thing on this planet. And now we're starting to realize that maybe that's not quite what was going on. Yeah.
Star Trek are technically members of the Federation. So.
Yeah. Yeah, Star Trek has cetacean ops, which is critters down there and that do all those things. So
I mean, Ghost Hand also, like the interstellar AIs that they had, the TARS.
Yeah.
Systems. I mean, they were AIs, but they also had a lot of protocols built into them that they couldn't bypass.
Right. I mean, like if you had cetacean ops on a ship, they could be there for the stuff that knocks out the humans. Like, we accelerated to 22 Gs. The humans are in really bad shape. Luckily, the ship is still under control by the octopuses because they don't compress.
Yeah.
So though it wasn't pleasant for them,
welcome back, Grant.
You could see the octopuses controlling the ship so that humans can be like, medical help for the humans because they're out.
Fun is in drawing that you have situations where perhaps in your corridors you have these big water tubes and you just see octopi being just like sucked through them.
Right. Throws his penis.
Throws his penis.
Damn it! You people just stop fighting up there. Stop fighting, you two.
We're gonna get another litter.
Yeah.
Great. Separate from that, I wonder if in your universe, and perhaps what would be required in even our universe, is perhaps at some point they came up with a law that, or like a constitutional law that basically said, regardless of construction, any exhibition of sentience gives that thing the full rights and consideration of any other subject being.
Yeah, I think that's part of what is on the. I mean, that's exactly what they're talking about, sentience. But the question is what, and that's where that episode that I was talking about with the holodeck, that would be the what question. What sentience?
Yeah.
Is it 20 terabytes of memory? Is it 15 petaflops of processing?
What's a petaflop?
It's the speed of a processor. But I mean, like, where is your sentience? Is it the ability to be aware of yourself? That's sort of the delineating line right now is aware of themselves. But one could argue that a dog is aware of itself. It's aware that it is. It thinks, therefore, it is.
Well, I would say a dog is sentient.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Do you move the line down there? Now the question is, then you make a holographic dog, right? Your holographic dog then fetches your newspaper every morning. Did it pass the Turing test of its own universe? You know what I mean? Like now that it fetches the newspaper, does it just sit there on idle mode? Is your Tesla car sentient? That's where you start having those questions.
I wonder if there needs to be levels of laws and responsibilities given your level of sentience. Because a dog could only be responsible for so many acts given its sentience because, again, it only has a certain level and it's a dog. So, so you have to treat the laws governing dogs, per se, different from laws governing humans or laws governing AIs. So if AIs, in a sense, if they found out that they have a higher level of sentience than human beings, perhaps they have even stricter laws and regulations that they themselves have on themselves, because they should be able to comprehend things better than humans and be more responsible.
And it makes you wonder because, like, I think that it might be interesting to have Unity not quite rigged properly. Like maybe the delineation of sentience for Unity is thinks about something other than survival as a base instinct. You know what I mean? Whereby you bypass a number of creatures that would be construed as sentient, but by legal definition, they're not. And that becomes sort of the crux of that story that I'm kind of developing over here.
Right.
The holodeck is a whole bunch of creatures that are smart enough to be sentient, but you know they pass the line that you and I would sort of think would be a given on that, but they don't pass the legal definition yet, which is what needs to be explored in the story. Is we need to, you know, increase our legal definition.
Right.
Like, I think that if you're going to have a world making AI pets thinking that they can circumvent the law, if they're part of the group that you have Chang and them part of, then you have to have like some sort of AI representative going down with you to review it to see if it does circumvent.
Right.
And it then falls
on
into
the kitty wake, that's a low-ranking person too.
Yeah.
I also wonder if we did have different levels, if we understood sentience to have varying levels and laws were different, and say AIs did have a higher level of sentience and more responsibilities. So then you'd encounter issues where if a human kills an AI, that's one level of crime. But if an AI kills a human, the punishment is actually stricter. Is that fair? They're more sentient. In theory, they should have more responsibility, more control of their actions than we do. So is it fair that their punishment is stricter than ours when we kill one of them?
See, that's another good aspect to think about too.
Yeah.
So one of the things that is making me kind of ponder on this, though, is what am I really looking for? What's the question I'm asking? And I think the real question is, when you talk about slavery, what is our responsibility as the sentient person involved? Because, of course, slavery, when we had it back in the days, that was exactly what we had decided. We had decided that these people were not sentient, or they weren't our
Good
level
enough for human values.
Yeah, they weren't good enough or whatever. So it was okay to treat them that way, which is exactly how we justify slavery.
Yeah.
The question then is really not what causes slavery in that aspect, but why would you want a slave? What is this sentience need? And the reason I'm saying that is because I was just thinking about the holodeck. What is the holodeck going to be used for? It's going to be used for sex, because, like, really? Well, okay, but then you ask yourself, what's wrong with your situation that you can't do the things that you need to do with your life, that you require an artificial assessment on that? And that's sort of what I was thinking about too. Why do you have slaves? Because I don't want to peel my grapes myself. You know, I don't want, whatever's the story. You have slaves because you're like,
I don't want to peel my grapes myself, and also do not want to pay them.
Right, exactly. I don't want to pay them. I don't want to, I don't want to use my resources for them. I want to build this thing, but I don't want to use resources for it.
Right.
So instead, I'm going to put slaves on it. And I think really that's the question that I'm looking for, is why do you need to assign the task to, why do you have to have a society or a fraction of society that builds things for you?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to do it.
Right.
You don't want to put the resources towards it.
There's also environmental things that I think also take part in situations like that. Like you're referring to the holodeck, in that people might use it for sexual purposes.
Sure.
Well, we have countries currently that are having struggles with the balance of genders, where there's a ton of males but not enough females.
Right.
And homosexuality is now becoming more prevalent because there's just not enough women to go around, so to speak. So if that were to occur, say, on a starship, if there's fewer women than there are men, perhaps that's the reason why the holodeck is in that scenario.
Sure. Or,
that's a good one.
Yeah, as our society changes, women are not going to be as holding to men on that particular thing. They can choose and decide, as long, and then you end up with structures like marriage where you're supposed to stay, with your mate. But what if your mate is asexual? Doesn't, still wants to be your mate, still wants to be part of your life, still wants to be connected, but isn't interested in sex. Some people aren't. And that's perfectly normal. So right now, the structure of our society is set such that you're just lost. If you're a person who likes sex and your partner does not like sex, you've got a problem. So would it change the dynamics of how marriage is set up? Would there be more marriages? Would there be, something like that? These are the things you want to kind of like explore. Why? Because that's the other thing, is then you're in a situation of, why are you using the holodeck for there? Is that a societal issue that needs to change? A structural issue? Or is it, because that's something I think if I were an AI, I would ask that question.
Right.
Why are you using
are
my
you an
people?
AI? Because you are asking that question.
I'm asking that question. Maybe.
Yeah, because you have an AI race in your storyline, and so you would have to ask yourself, like, did the AI's program, like, say the Kittiwake that your ship had type of holodeck, did the AIs approve of what type of programming goes into it to make them non-AI?
Or do the AIs view these like disabled AIs? Do they view them like we would view, say, somebody who has Down syndrome or something like that? I mean, do they view them as just, mentally lower power?
Or would they view them as low grade programming?
Right. How would the AIs view this? And if so, would we find it an appropriate thing to say, well, they're mentally disabled, so we'll just use them for sex? And you're like, whoa. I mean, right? You like put it from our point of view, and
Yeah,
you
that's kind
in
of
that
like
position, and you're like,
Damn, that was quick. That went quick.
yeah,
right? But I mean, like, that's
as a person who
You're
has
not wrong though.
I mean, as a person who has family members with mentally disabled, and I did have a cousin before she passed. She was Down syndrome, so like for using these words are kind of like I want to kind of veer away from using those words because it's making me highly uncomfortable because it's
well,
my family
that's,
member.
but see, that's the thing. Here's the thing about art. The point is to make people uncomfortable and think, right?
Right, and I understand that.
And so
However, I would like to think in my mind that your AI would not consider it that. They would use terms like their programming is lesser. It's not like ours. It's not as complex.
Well,
And
that's
then,
right. But
and
would
then they don't correlate what they don't correlate it to the same notion as what a human would correlate it as because of that. But I think a human would kind of trigger them into basically by they saying what you just said. And
right.
the
Well,
AI
that's
would
what I
probably
mean.
go,
Is like so that's the point that I'm kind of trying to get at. We get to this station. We're at this station. They're running these holodecks. The holodeck characters are acting really weird. The AI on the ship is then feeling that way. Like, what are you using these characters for?
Yeah.
And once they bring that up, that's when the AI on the ship would say, wouldn't that be kind of like using mentally disabled people? And that would be the moment, because it's supposed to be uncomfortable. I mean, it's not supposed to be comfortable at all.
Yeah.
And I'm not disagreeing with you. I mean, that's what my dad and my stepmom did all of the time, was working with people who had problems to bring them up to operable in society. So I've been embedded with these children for a long time, trying to get them up to society too. So to me, it also is very visceral. It's a very visceral, like right here. But that's the point. That's the point, right? The point is, if the story makes you go, ew, then you're doing it right.
Yeah.
Right?
Most likely,
Well,
yes.
I mean, but also at the
Especially
same time,
since I like the moral quandaries, I like to make us think. I like to make us go, oh, I
like,
didn't think about
I
that.
would say like a line would be like the AI would like look at the humans that are in charge, going, "You do realize that we may view their programming as basically something designed for entertainment, not for complex life forms.
Right?
That doesn't make it seem like they aren't like your person, your human beings that have mental differences or differently mental states." And
Right.
like for them
You're right,
saying it to the humans, it would kind of clue in like, hey, maybe we're not treating this properly, you
Right.
know.
Well, and I think that that's the point that I was headed for when I wrote the original story.
Yeah.
When I wrote the original story, the concept was that the characters on the holodeck had sentience, but they had assumed they didn't.
Right.
Because they were programmed, and they were, the errors that they were getting in the programming they thought was a programming bug, that they had typed in the programming wrong. But what was really happening was they were gaining a sentience.
Mhm.
And I think that if you have, I can pivot this so that it's not the holodeck of TNG being invented in TOS era, and it's like the proto holodeck. I can pivot that and still use it in Bellatrix Rising, but with the spin of having an AI on board who's saying, do you know what you guys are doing?
Yeah.
I mean, are you aware of what you're doing? So I think that's, but yes, I absolutely think that that's the quandary. That's the question
I
that
think
we're asking.
I think you have an extra quandary there in that once they acknowledge, okay, they're sentient. So obviously we don't want sentient holograms. So we're going to program that out. But obviously we don't want to get rid of the sentient ones we have, right? Because that's human. Right? So what do we do with them? Because in your universe already, the ability to create AIs in a physical form, at least, or to have like their own self-computing system, it's a rarity. The element and all of that. So, do we want to use that? Are they willing to give up some to give them form outside of the holodeck?
Right?
Or
That's another good question.
Well,
Right?
because they're not to their level, right?
But
So-
also you have to answer another thing is if they have been used for a specific purpose, such as sex, you now have to realize that you may have to rehabilitate them like you would people that were in the sex slave trade, where you have to basically incorporate them and deal with their trauma of having to deal with being a person that was solely created just for that purpose. Just like you would have to do with humans who suffer that trauma, that go through that, and they never chose to do it. You know,
Right. But there's the other question that I think Bill's headed for as well, which is, if we were to make clones of humans, do you accept them into the human race? You know what I mean? That's the question that we'd be asking now, because you've got the, do you say, especially if they were clones made by octopuses, you know what I mean? Like, they're not made by us. So in the instance of this pivot,
and they're imperfect. What would be an imperfect clone that an octopi would make? Would it be a human with eight appendages?
Right.
Like,
well, it's not just that. I mean,
Detachable
yeah. I mean,
penis.
but let's just say the octopuses. Let's just say that the octopuses did make human octopi. We've got, well, all of us would have 7 arms. So anyway, let's just say that happened, and then all of a sudden we realize that we've made a moral problem here. And we tell the octopuses they can't do that anymore. And the octopuses agree, everything's fine. but you still have these 100 or 200, 8-armed people.
Yeah.
They're not going to fit in society. You're not going to be able to bring them into society and just say, yeah, go get a job at McDonald's, it'll be fine, because they're freaks.
Yeah.
And so,
Well,
it'd be like that problem of integration. And so you'd have the same problem with the AI race. You're all of a sudden like, oh, humans made a mistake. We've got like these 200 new AIs to your system. Sorry.
In that sense, though, if we ever hit that state, I really hope that because if we ever did like let those clones, AIs, whatever they have, like multiple different arms, if we have extraterrestrials and things like that, like I'm hoping we find something close enough to that where we're all away from the aspect of like you just look like a freak because you don't have 2 arms, 2 legs.
Sure.
Half you have something hanging in between them, half you don't. Like the atypical, like human-esque body structure.
Yeah.
And that's the part I always love about like within storytelling and whatnot, like sci-fi specifically, is I love their aliens.
Yeah.
Because I love to see what they do, if they stay with the atypical human-esque structure, or do they actually like break that barrier and actually like, hey, these things are here.
Well, and that actually then goes back to laying down another layer here.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the AIs probably still harbor a little bit of anger, a little bit of aggravation about the war, right? The war is only about 200 years old. It's not that old, even though that's a long generation set for AIs.
It would be like the older. It's kind of like the effects of war on different countries. Like the older you are, the more stronger you feel. The next generation doesn't feel as strong, and then the third generation, like the second generation after that after the war generation,
like
kind of
Civil War.
Yeah, but the Civil War has had though echoes, right?
Oh no, that's a Civil War. What I'm saying is like, for instance, like I went to when I was going to school with students that were coming from Japan,
right?
And we had to study world history. Mm-hmm. For them, it was a shock when they covered World War II, because here in America, we tell both sides in our history at times, and they were shocked,
sure,
because they didn't know.
But
to what extent they went?
Yeah. Well, they're not taught the rape of Manchuria. They're not taught it at all.
Are they? Do they know about it, or are they just never taught about how?
They're just never taught about it.
Really?
And so, in fact, I was asked when I was over there not to mention it. I was asked that. I was told. I wasn't told that my job depended on it, but it was strongly implied that we didn't mention the rape of Manchuria and the occupation of China and the occupation of Korea, because that's not taught in their books. They've been run for a while by their very conservative nationalist party, and that party really feels that if you make anything, if you make Japan look bad, then everybody's going to hate Japan, and nobody will want to live in Japan, and everybody will leave. And so they're really big on, we make Japan the awesomest place that it ever was awesomed, and that's cool. And we got into that World War II thing, and we were wrong there, but it's all right because we got over it. Nobody really was like bad in that.
Right. And then I talked to some of my friends who are half Japanese or just even like full Japanese. And the half Japanese, like their grandparents had a huge problem with their child marrying an American.
Oh yeah,
because of the events of World War II that they lived through.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't think that's just Japanese though.
Well, no, I'm just saying like that's
I know
what it was,
but
that
also
from that.
Right, and that's kind of where I was going with the Civil War part of it too. The South and the North, like the South hangs on to that religiously, but as the generation keeps going, that feeling of like, oh, we're the like hard South, everything about that, like it's depleting.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and one of the things that I just wrote down, so I was thinking about like the way that the Vulcans operate in Star Trek.
Mhm.
They're, they're superior and they know it. You know what I mean? That kind of attitude. And
Yeah.
when the humans end up being superior, they seem very perplexed. Like, how did you manage to pull that off? You're not superior to us. And the way the Vulcans respond typically to humans breaking the rules and then winning makes them very confused. And that has been sort of a trait of the humans. And what I was thinking was more along the lines of the AIs feel like their culture is monolithic. It's
Right.
a thing that exists. It is what it is. And whereby the humans have been adapting because of the Najor and the Jacine and all of the other races that are involved, the AIs actually have not been. They haven't been adapting necessarily to a multicultural universe because they can be any of those characters physically. Like they could physically look like a Jacine, they can physically look like a Najor because they're just holograms in that instance. So they feel like they're a different entity, really, and that the culture out there is not the same. They are not the same as all these other cultures because they can be any of those cultures. So the point that I'm trying to kind of think that I think would be fascinating is when humans create more of them, now they have to take them in.
Yeah.
They've got to, this is the first time they've breached that monolithic culture, and it will be a shock. Not because they're not, they don't think they're smarter, they don't think they're better, they think they're different.
Yeah.
And therefore not penetrable than all of the other carbon-based life forms that live out there, even though they're not the only silicon-based life form. But that's not the point. The point is they're the only computer-based life form. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
once they breach that with this episode's going to be like a shock to them. They're going to be, the culture's going to have an issue.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be like having to integrate octopus people, because those octopus people, for the analogy, those are a visual effect. Like they look different. But what I'm actually thinking of is more like the Vulcans and the humans, where the Vulcans had this weird belief that they were just smarter than the humans. And every time the humans did something that won, they were like, how'd you do that?
Yeah. And I think they explored that a lot with Spock.
They did.
Well, because he's half human, and there's a lot of the character Spock was looked down on by a lot of other Vulcans.
Yeah.
But he was just as much Vulcan as he was human. So, I mean...
well, and they did that a lot in the Enterprise, too.
Yeah.
That makes me wonder about the AI races. With any species you might encounter out in the universe, how well do they deal with imperfection among their own species? I feel humans are pretty varied amongst ourselves, so we would see ourselves as pretty tolerant in the variation of our own species. Perhaps there are even more varied species in the universe than we would seem intolerant to imperfection. But how do we at least perceive the AIs dealing with imperfection in their own system? Like if they're turning their less perfect AIs into support AIs that take the form of animal companions, then they might not deal so well with these imperfect AIs we created in a holodeck.
Right. And that was because we had come up with this concept earlier about the imperfect AIs became cats and dogs and things like that. But then the question really is, maybe they don't do that. What happens when you cut a disc and the seed is wrong? You cut the disc and the disc goes bad, the character goes bad, the AI is defective.
I was gonna say they kind of touched a lot of that in Altered Carbon too, a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, what happens when you have something like that goes wrong? That is something to it. I mean, this is a great race because we've already had like 70 moral questions about this particular race.
Well, and
This
also
is exactly the kind of stuff that I want to explore in Bellatrix Rising is these moral quandaries.
yeah.
You know,
Also, how would we feel? Like another moral thing would be is say we create them, and the AI said, okay, so we create them. News is out about it. All the humans know this happened, and we went to the AIs and said, "Hey, this happened." And the AI was like graciously, "Yes, of course we will take them in." And then later we find out they were turned into human companions, stripped of their forms that they were. They're no longer humanoid, and now they're this. Like, how would we feel about like that's normal for them?
right?
Like, they were being kind in doing that. Like they thought they were like being the most gracious species in the world, and now we're mortified that they were stripped of their forms and turned into these things.
Or you have the
Brent is like, but I don't want a pet dragon. I want one that chose to be a dragon.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But then you also another thing is like so you have like these 1 to 200 now sentient AI life forms that were originally based to be in holographic scenarios with humans that all have sentience. So they are having a problem integrating it into their planet society. What if they were like, well, if enough people on their planet from their AI society just doesn't want them on their planet, you then have, okay, well, then we'll sequester them to a moon that will make viable for them specifically. And we will take away any type of form of them reproducing more of themselves.
Right.
Like,
Genocide.
yeah,
Now,
well, not really genocide, just basically.
Not genocide. There's a what's the word for it?
Genocide.
Genocide.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Brent actually brought up a thing that's a thought process too, is that obviously there would be AIs who would choose to be sex workers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you would have them, you know what? That sounds like a fun job. Okay. So
Yeah.
there would be choice made. And I think really it's about agency. It's like everything. It's about agency. It's like, did you give them the right to make that choice? They can choose whatever they want. And if they chose to be like, I don't know, a sewage cleaning robot, then that's their choice. They chose to do it.
Right. But but again, I say like these AI probably didn't have a choice.
Right. That's the thing. You're talking about, what Bill's talking about is they adopt those 200 AIs and then assign them to be cats and dogs.
Yeah.
It wasn't their choice. They had no agency. And the assumption is they were made by humans, so clearly not really good AIs, so they're defective, so we should just probably make them cats and dogs.
Right.
And I think the quandary there is also that it
Bye, Brent. It's actually 11 o'clock, so we'll have to go to in a minute here. I want to hear what Bill says first, though.
I think the moral quandary there is that it happened post-existent creation. So where discs that are ascribed incorrectly, they're immediately assigned. They have not really existed very long at all.
Right.
And these ones have existed at communication, have already formed memories that then were assigned. I think part of that might go to, and this is a more hot topic, and so regardless of anyone's opinions on it, I feel like this leads a little bit into the topic of abortion a little bit. Because when you're talking about abortion, you're talking about, regardless of your opinion of if it's alive or not, it was cut off early, so it never really existed all that much, so it's okay. But killing a child, that is different, right? Because it existed. It's longer, it formed memories, it has personality, things like that. So I feel it touches on that a little bit too.
Right. And that is another one of those, that's a question that we'll have to ask at some point about the AIs. If you scribe a disk and it clearly starts to go bad, do you terminate it? You can see already that it has chosen to pick, seed number 400 billion, zillion, quadrillion, 243, which happens to be the Jeffrey Dahmer line, and you know that this AI is going to show up and be a mass murderer. Do you terminate it? That's the question.
Yeah.
That's another one of those, oh man, this race just has all kinds of interesting moral quandaries, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, and also it's like that.
Status on that. If it becomes the Jeffrey Dahmer seed, then what do you do? What does the culture do to that? And if so, could they do that to the 200 that we just got from this and just decide, well, they're all Jeffrey Dahmer seed and terminate them all?
Well, and that also leads me to the whole thing that we were talking before, like about people that have problems with the war that happened between the AIs and carbon-based life forms. Well, if you have people who are upset about it in that culture, wouldn't you see people make or create ones that would retaliate in secret?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like these are people that have a problem with it. They're being driven by emotions, but they're also mechanical, so they think that they don't have the emotional range of a carbon-based life form, but they're exhibiting the same type of emotional rage that a carbon-based life form may take. So
I'm trying to avoid the trope that the computer has no emotions. So I think that they actually will know that they've got emotions, and I think that they're most definitely willing to imbibe.
Well, it's kind of
So
like
I think you
criminals.
would
It's kind of like Vulcan criminals.
Right.
Like Vulcan criminals always seem to justify, but they don't realize that their justification sounds like they're using their emotions to base that justification.
Right. But that's what I
You know
mean.
what I mean? That's what I'm trying to get at. That type of thing.
The AIs don't have that limitation.
Okay.
So,
So
and
they
that's
have a broader range of emotion. Got it.
Yeah.
I think with the holodecks, if they were in a situation where they were strictly deformed and made to be what is normal in AI society, I think they would have the highest likelihood of rebelling because they knew what it was like to not be that. Where the ones that were instantly turned into that's their normal life. They wouldn't have seen it any other way. But because the holodeck ones did see it another way, they see the unfairness of it. And so they would be like to rebel and cause unrest.
Yeah, which makes it even more of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because now for the AI culture, you've adopted 200 people who are all mad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I mean, like, they would probably choose to put them, sequester them on their own colony
For their own good.
have them integrated because for their own good, if they try to integrate them with the society, it will cause chaos within that society because you now have these beings that are mad, and there's nothing that you can do other than work with them to try to de-escalate their mental state, essentially.
Right.
Yeah, but see, then their planet dies, and they elect some leader, and then they take over some ship, and
Listen, I don't want to say that it'll turn into level experimentation. No one needs the wrath of no one needs that. Like, I'm not saying that. Like, I'm just saying, like, they don't even know how long these things are going to live.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, even if they do take them to the planet and turn them into cats and dogs and stuff like that, you still don't get rid of those emotions.
Yeah.
They're still within that programming.
Yeah.
So then you have the other problem is now the AIs have done something to them after the humans mistreated them. Now the AIs that were supposed to be their saviors also mistreated them, and now you gave them fangs.
Right.
A good emotionally impactful story would be someone falls in love with one of the holodeck, but then you find out that, well, maybe this was done in Star Trek already, where they weren't constructed well enough and they just kind of de-res or decompile over time,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're dying in front of you kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of aspects to this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're running out of time because I think we all need to go to lunch. But I appreciate having you guys all here. Bill, I appreciate you.
Like at a certain point, And as I felt like getting up and having Bill sit here because clearly Bill would.
Well, no, actually, the thing is that Bill's got some really fascinating twists to this.
Uh-huh.
And I wish we could talk all day long, but I know I got to go feed my kid. So there's that. Otherwise, he won't feed himself. I don't know what the deal is. You'll be there someday. You'll be there.
Well, I mean, you're also you're also talking to someone at age 6. I already knew on how to use a stove and cook a hamburger.
Except that it won't work.
My mom was teaching me how to cook at that age too, so I totally get it.
As I said yesterday, you don't get to parent what you think you're going to parent. You get to parent whatever kid shows up in the crib.
Yeah.
They tell you what kind of character you're parenting. In Mother Russia, kids parent you. You know.
Yeah.
So.
No, I talked to one of my friends who her daughter is a couple of months old now, and trust me, like she's like, yeah, she's growing. She's growing. She's starting to mutter. She does not like it when her mom's on the telephone. So
it's all good.
That's
okay,
funny.
well, I appreciate having all of you guys on the show today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Maybe next time I'll just replace, and I'll be behind there, and Bill will be right here.
I like having you both involved. So don't think
I said I'll be in Bill's place, so it'll be reversed.
You'll be the one standing over the wall.
Yeah.
You'll be the Wilson.
The Wilson.
Yeah. You'll be the Wilson position. Okay.
Exactly.
I'll talk to you. Right. On that note, I would like to thank Brent and definitely Ghost Hand for being here today. And that was kind of cool. Did we have anybody? Did Joan show up today? I didn't see her. I don't know.
I only saw Brent and Ghost Hand. Or at least Joan might have been, but they were probably the only people that know that we were active were Brent and Ghost Hand.
Yeah. So coolio. Well, thank you guys for all being here, and I will see you all on Monday for Springs Monday. And you guys can join me if you want, by the way.
But it's summer.
You can go to sleep if you want. That's okay.
And I said, but it's summer.
You can join me if you want or not. That's your prerogative. I just want you to know that you're welcome to join me on Springs Monday if you wish. And I will talk to you all later. And for everybody else, keep your eyes on the stars. Bye.